Good morning, everyone. I hope you are fine. In our lecture today, we will discuss Chapter 4 and Chapter 5 in Wuthering Heights, a novel by Emily Bronte. This lecture of Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte will discuss the following: Chapter 4 summary and Chapter 4's commentary that includes Lockwood's curiosity and knowledge, Heathcliff and Hindley, Heathcliff and Catherine's childhood, and Heathcliff and Catherine. Also, it will discuss Chapter 5 summary and Chapter 5's commentary that contains the bond between Heathcliff and Catherine along with religious terms and beliefs in regard to Catherine's and Heathcliff's love. Okay, I will start with chapter 4. In chapter 4, the characters are Lockwood, Nellie, Heathcliff, Catherine, Hindley, Mr. Anshaw, Cathy, and Harrington. Setting, place or places, Thrushcross Grange and Wuthering Heights. Time, 1801 and many years before. Moving on to the summary of chapter 4. So, recuperating from his wanderings, Lockwood asked Nellie about Heathcliff and his daughter-in-law. On her part, Nellie informs him that the widow's maiden name was Catherine Linton, the daughter of Nellie's late master, and that Harrington Anshaw is the nephew of her late master's wife. Cathy is the last of the Lintons, she narrates, and Harrington is the last of the Anshaws. Nellie also reveals that Heathcliff had married Mr. Linton's sister. After giving such information to Lockwood, this bit of information became his curiosity. So he encourages Nellie to tell him the history of the people and the places he has encountered. So Nellie's story begins with her life at Wuthering Heights. She grew up with Catherine and Hindley Anshaw. Mr. Anshaw brought an orphan home from Liverpool, named him Heathcliff after a son who died in childbirth, and grew to love the boy more than his own son. And that was actually the beginning of the disaster in Wuthering Heights. Also, both Catherine and Hindley initially disliked Heathcliff, but Catherine soon grew to love him. On his part, Hindley resented Heathcliff, especially for displacing him from his father. So, after Mrs. Anshaw died, within 2 years of Heathcliff's arrival, Hindley was separated from everyone in his family. Now, commentary of chapter 4. Chapter 4 commentary includes Lockwood's curiosity and knowledge. So, what is the relationship between Lockwood's curiosity and knowledge? Well, Lockwood's involvement with Catherine's spirit at Wuthering Heights, as well as his interest in the Heathcliff, prompts him to ask Nellie about the history of Wuthering Heights. Thereby, at this point, Nellie assumes the role of a primary narrator of the novel. So, Lockwood's curiosity leads Nellie to narrate the story and the history of Wuthering Heights and its people. During her narration, however, she often quotes other characters. So, some of her information is not first-hand, but rather second and even third-hand knowledge. Part of Nellie's narration was about the relationship between Heathcliff and Hindley. Her explanation about Heathcliff's introduction into the Earnshaw household provides sympathy for both Heathcliff and Hindley. From Hindley's perspective, Heathcliff had usurped the love of both his father and his sister. Heathcliff, on the other hand, is an orphan who is ready to accept the members of a family that is not fully ready to accept him. Most importantly, the later narration of the history of Wuthering Heights includes the relationship between Heathcliff and Catherine, particularly Heathcliff's and Catherine's childhood. So the childhood of both Catherine and Heathcliff provides the development of their characters and foreshadows their futures. So, according to Nellie, when crossed, Catherine, the warm and loving daughter, can be defiant, headstrong, and cruel. On his part, Heathcliff can be brooding, sullen, and capable of vindictiveness. Actually, their relationship begins to explore one of the primary themes of Wuthering Heights, namely that love can be capricious and its consequences devastating. Now, after giving the summary and commentary of chapter 4, now I will discuss chapter 5 in Wuthering Heights. Well, in chapter 5, the characters are Heathcliff, Catherine, Hindley, Mr. Earnshaw, Nellie, and Joseph. Setting: the place Wuthering Heights. Time: years before 1801. Okay, the summary of chapter 5 could be as follows. Well, as Mr. Earnshaw's health begins to fail, he becomes less tolerant of complaints about Heathcliff, and as a result, sends Hindley away to school. Then, as Mr. Earnshaw moves closer to death, Joseph begins to have a greater influence over his master, particularly in regard to religion. On her part, Catherine continues to tease her father about her exploits with Heathcliff, never really conscious of how sick her father really is. Lastly, when Mr. Earnshaw dies, Catherine and Heathcliff console one another with talk of heaven. So, the events of chapter 5 eventually lead us to see how the bond between Heathcliff and Catherine becomes stronger than before after the death of Mr. Earnshaw. Okay, after giving a brief summary for chapter 5, now I will move on to discuss the commentary. Well, as we have just said, chapter 5 clearly shows the bond between Catherine and Heathcliff. So, the bond between Catherine and Heathcliff grows stronger as Mr. Earnshaw grows weaker. The extent of their love, however, is shown as they console each other with talk of heaven. the night Mr. Enshaw died. Nevertheless, this bond of love between Catherine and Heathcliff is actually defined according to religious terms and beliefs in chapter 5 at the time of Mr. Enshaw's death. For example, we have a description for both Catherine and Heathcliff by using religious terms that makes this scene so important. So, religious terms like heaven and angel are used to describe Catherine, while other religious terms like devil and Satan are used to describe Heathcliff. However, Catherine's and Heathcliff's love is not defined according to religion, and instead it is spiritual. So neither character is shown to be particularly religious in a conventional understanding. It is as if the love Catherine and Heathcliff share is truly beyond organized religion and is indeed spiritual. So, for this reason, the source of love between Heathcliff and Catherine is not religion. However, it is their love for each other. Nevertheless, Mr. Enshaw's death is the one time that Catherine and Heathcliff do not turn exclusively to one another. At this time, religious beliefs bring them comfort. At all other times, Catherine and Heathcliff serve as each other's source of love. That was the end of our lecture today. For further reading, please refer to these resources. Next lecture, I will discuss the summary and commentary of chapter 6. Thank you very much for your time and good luck.